The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are.
I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
Don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Thomas, how is it that every time I see you, you become more handsome? And that is not this week's question.
I've been getting in the ocean every day. I eat a plant-based lunch every single day. Usually animal products at dinner. And I get into the sunshine and walk barefoot a lot.
See, that's not the answer I think either I or our listeners want to hear. I
All
want
right,
to know
I'm just taking
what
a
the
pill.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. What is the pill and where can I get it?
It's still in the beta phase, man. You don't want it. Last time, I heard people ended up with purple blisters on their, extremities. It's not cool. I'll let you know when it's ready, though. You're not ready for it now, though.
In all seriousness, I have a question for you. No, in all playfulness, I have a question for you. And that is, if you could meet God and you could only ask him or her one question, what would it be?
Oh, my.
The question within a question.
Wow. This is something I'll probably need the rest of my life to accurately answer.
You have 20 minutes.
Ooh. Jesus, dude. I may have to... This sounds like something that you've been thinking about a lot. So why don't you answer this question first?
Oh man, in all honesty, I wasn't expecting you to do the turnaround that quickly. I have been thinking about it pretty much since I became aware of the notion of a God, or the concept of a God. And I think one of them would be, does it always have to be this difficult?
That's a great one. I tell you one that just occurred to me is why is our perception of reality such a sliver of what we know is reality? Why is our consciousness, this shared consciousness that we have, just such a tiny percentage of what we all know reality is? Whether that means more dimensions, things that we only see with psychedelics. I wish I didn't have to go into realms of losing control or seeing, possibly being arrested by taking things. And it's part of the process, I understand that. But I wish I got a little bit more in my waking hours of the comprehensive view of reality. I wish I wasn't stuck in this tiny little narrow band, which I kind of get the sense that I am. And that's probably a lot of my own doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I've had very similar thoughts many times. One of the ones just started a couple of years ago. I started to think about it is like, I think we've actually spoken about this before on the show, but something that I found very difficult to deal with is realizing that no matter what we achieve or experience or get to do in this life, the ceiling is still the limitation of being human, right? So and I think rich people and extremely successful people hit that ceiling all the time. Just imagine if money was no object, or you had every desire catered to on a whim. Where else is there to go from there? What's the next? You know what I'm saying?
Possibly, but what about the ones that have those same means and all they care about is making stuff? Then it stops being, what can I consume and what can I have and what can I build becomes the alternative. And I think, man, there's a great line in Dostoevsky's The Idiot where he says, once I have money, then I'll be extremely original. And I love that line. It's like everyone is sort of just like, digging around like pigs and shit with everybody else until they seem like it, or at least the perception is, once you have the means, then you could do great things. But probably the opposite is true. If you can do great things without means, oh man.
Wow, that's very wise.
You're going to be impressive when you have it.
Yeah, that's very, very wise. Because I worked with a guy once who he had made a lot of money, but he hit like, I think he made his fortune by the age of like 41 or 42, and then he kind of realized that he had done nothing with his life except like he was a stockbroker, so he was basically just parasiting off the wealth of other people,
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's what all stockbrokers do, but
exactly, I was going to qualify.
This guy was definitely one of those, and you could see everything he was doing was then in a panic, like that, because then he was like the Dostoevsky character. He had money, and so now he could create things, but it was kind of done in the panic of, geez, I've done nothing, I better do something now, which I don't think is like a very good energy to create something with either, if you know what I mean, or to create from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So in coming face to face with God or gods, him or her, they, we, what I meant to ask you this about a year ago, and my question was, what does your God look like?
That's the weirdest fucking thing, because I have a list of questions to ask you, and I always add to the document whenever something pops up, and in it is, what does your God look like?
Really?
Yeah, swear to God.
It's far out.
Yeah, it's weird. So I guess that's a question that needs to be answered by both of us.
Well, I'll tell you where it came from. Last year, I was having a really rough time right before we started Digital Communion. I've written extensively about it. Like, things weren't happening with acting and business and everything else. And a buddy of mine, a very good friend of mine, was like, hey man, why don't you really start to name and create whoever you want to ask for help. And I was like, because at that time I was like, I'm all about, praying to the source. It's the source. That's what I call it. I call it the source. And he's like, yeah, but why don't you try and make it whatever you think you need? And
wow.
I was like, wow, that's fun. See, that way, when you ask for help in specific ways, you have a picture in your mind of the person or the thing or the entity that you're asking, and that will make it just a little bit more concrete for you, maybe more comfortable to make that connection. And so I did, and I'm excited to tell you about what my God looks like. But first, I'd like to hear what yours does.
Wow, man, that's... Yeah, the thing is, I know what it looks like and sounds like and feels like, but to get that information like condensed and filtered into the medium of words it's something I've been trying to do for a long time, and I think it's actually it's probably been the curse of all people who have had mystical experiences throughout history, is trying to relay them to those who have not, using the blunt medium of language. It's
wow.
Yeah, I think it might be pretty much impossible. I think it's something that it might have been Lao Tzu, but one of those Eastern or Asian enlightened masters, he basically said, you've heard this, like as soon as you say something is the way, it's not the way, because then you've limited by language.
Yeah, but what does quantum theory say about that? Is that pretty much the same thing? I mean, like, you're automatically influencing the outcome by thinking about the outcome?
I guess. I mean, that is a way to look at it. And for me, to get back to your question and not try to placate you with some ridiculous expression that a dude said in China 5,000 years ago.
I got a lot of love for Lao Tzu though, so you're cool. I'm fine with that.
He's one of your boys, right?
Yeah, man. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, Nick.
Who do you think would win in a fight between him and Marcus Aurelius?
That's a really fucking good question, but I'm pretty sure you know the answer to that. Let's not joke around. I mean, one was a philosopher and the other was a philosopher king.
That's true.
The emperor of the greatest civilization of the world up until that time, who was also, just a very clear-headed, stoic man. I think it would be pretty close, but I bet Marcus was just physically bigger and stronger, and he was a warrior, and he grew up in that culture, so he'd probably dominate him.
Yeah, but Lao Tzu would know like kung fu and shit, bro.
He would probably hit him like 17 times, and Marcus would be like, "Yeah, what else you got?"
Man, to answer your question, my God looks like it's this weird like mass of twisting, dynamic, colorful, bright, swirling chaos. Almost. That's the closest I can come, and even that is not a very good choice of words for what is in my mind when I think of that concept.
I can picture that pretty well, man. I think that's a fucking great answer. That's
Thank
awesome.
you, bro.
Yeah.
What is yours?
So I never thought I would say this, and I think this is probably why I never asked it. But I will say that this is the God I created in my mind. Yeah. So just bear with me. My friend Bob was like, "What's this God gonna look like? It's got to be all the things that you can connect with and you identify with." And I was like, "Well, my God would be a fucking badass God." So when I conjured him up, it's basically like a Zeus-like figure riding a surfboard, who's just like super fucking jacked with a massive beard and super long hair, and he's just riding down the face of this wave, right? And this is the crazy part. His fucking dick is like the neck of a guitar, right? And he's got this crazy erection, and he can play his boner and it will like affect change all over the world. So I was like, I'm gonna pray to this God who's like a surfing Zeus with a big fucking boner guitar, and somehow I gotta tell you, it didn't really work for me.
Bro, I think we probably have to end Digital Communion right now, because nothing is ever gonna top that description of what you're about.
Surfing boner Zeus guitar God?
That is, I mean, that could spawn an entire film, bro.
It's a really far out character, and so like I had this idea and it started to build in my mind. I was like, I want to make this animated video. But then, like, I would totally destroy his power if I finally put him on paper. Like, I tried to draw him a couple of times. I was like, man, what a weird fucking... How did my mind come up with that? And it's like, usually he has a loincloth on. But when you pray to him, he's got a... that's when his fucking big dick comes out and he starts to play it. And he's, like, playing all kinds of shit as he's going down the face of this wave. And the wave is just, like, just massive. And he's... it's a really strange thing that I came up with, and I'm really embarrassed to admit it, but, this show is all about really being honest, brutal honesty. I wonder what Pastor Nar's going to think about this. He's gonna...
Dude, how could anyone not like that image? It's powerful, bro. It's powerful.
Just playing that thing and just going down the face, like, you know what? It's all going to be good.
Yeah, I did... And you said you prayed to this God and you didn't really notice much of an effect.
Well, I tried, and for a while it was just weird thinking of a big Greek God with a big boner all the time, with an erection. So I was like, let me cut that part out of it. But still, like, praying to Zeus, and I was really into the Iliad at the time, and was reading about all these, heroic Greek figures, and they're constantly praying to the gods, and the gods are meddling in their affairs, in this big battle. And I wanted it to be really effective. And I love that book so much. And I love the idea of having somebody come down and meddle in my affairs. If I just burned, a couple of fatted thigh bones from a heifer or something. I couldn't find any of those. I didn't do any of the rituals. I dabbled a little bit, but it just didn't really, I think always in the back of my mind, and this is the issue, it's always a creation of man. The connection, it's always a caricature of a god. And so when I really feel it, I think probably the closest I've ever felt connected to the source was deep in a meditation going down, the third eye tunnel during this amber sort of winding, twisting tunnel right in the middle of my head, and just feeling like I was traveling through time and getting close to the everything. So the idea of the gods it's cute for me, and it was a lot of fun, and it lets me use my imagination. But in the end, it always feels like a caricature of what God should be, especially to a dude who's into physical culture and eating meat. It's over the top. And the reality is you can have that connection just by sitting still and try not to think about anything.
Yeah. Wow, bro. I didn't know you'd taken to such a detailed place. And I didn't even know you'd started considering doing some kind of ritual. That's interesting. I've been considering doing a ritual myself for a while. In fact, I read a book on rituals for manifestation, because I'm kind of the opinion that a lot of that secret law of attraction stuff is, I guess there's some truth to it, but I think it requires a much more active role from the participant than just a receptive, just sitting there thinking, I want an ice cream cone or whatever it is you desire at that moment and expecting it to be delivered. I think the universe or the source or whatever, it wants some kind of action or commitment on your part, and that commitment might not even be related to the desired result. Let's say you want a new BMW, logically you would say that the commitment would be to start earning them, or trying to make an attempt to earn the money for the car, whereas perhaps the source is so obscure and indirect in its operation that something like burning the thigh bone of a heifer or whatever would have more of an effect. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, I'm all for ritual, and that's part of what I like to build stuff into my daily routine that feels like that. Even making the French press coffee in the morning is very, it allows me to be very mindful. But ancient rituals and the idea of sacrifice and offerings are in just about every culture. And I love that. And I think that, I don't know if it's something that I need to do, but I'd certainly be into looking into it, and maybe not ones that, where I have to kill animals, but, some of the ancient Greek ones where the gods are such a part of that culture and are so well documented, and probably in Hindu culture as well, and actually most cultures. If they wrote about it, we could probably figure out some of those rituals. But let me ask you this. Do you think you can engage in those rituals and without it being cultural appropriation? Must you follow all the other dogmatic precepts of said, religion in order to get a benefit from going through with, how I have this idea about doing things that people have done for thousands of years, right? Like building a fire and looking into the fire, or cooking something over that fire, or baking bread, or doing these things that people have done for thousands of years, and it's virtually unchanged. I like the idea of a facsimile of a ritual being repeated over and over. But can you get the same benefit from it if you don't understand or appreciate all of the nuances and minutiae surrounding it.
Wow, what an amazing question. There's very few people in the world that can put together what you just did, and that's fantastic. I've been thinking about this recently because I've been reading a book called Musashi, which
The Book of the Five Rings?
No, not the Book of Five Rings. It's a biography about Musashi. It's not written by him, but it's a biographical novel is maybe a better way to describe it. And in it, they speak a lot about the tea ceremony, and I think that just by being around things of a certain quality, let me put it this way: I don't need to know the exact process by which this computer was engineered. Like, I don't need to know that it was how much they heated the magnesium to mold it into this form, and the factory in which the semiconductors were created, and who designed it, like the industrial design. I don't need to know all that. I can literally pick it up and appreciate that this is a fucking great computer. Do you know what I mean? And I think that when you're in the presence of something, if you're awake and aware enough, generally, you don't need to be specifically aware of the qualities of that thing. You'll just know, like, you'll be in a tea ceremony and you'll just be like, something sacred is going on here, and I can feel it's just affecting me in my spirit. I don't know what it means when the chick holds the teacup at like a 43-degree angle. Or, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I Ashley and I have talked about this a lot. Every time I drink red wine and eat a piece of red meat that I've cooked on the grill, I get weird, like, ancient... Maybe I mentioned this on the program before.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, like I just get these powerful flashbacks that take me back through an incredible amount of time into the past, where I'm just like, whoa, it just flashes of like, holy, like I'm getting chills in my arms just like thinking about it. Like, it's like being, like having moments of the past, just imbibing and feasting on these things. It feels like feasting, you know. It feels
That's
like this
awesome.
very visceral thing, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm doing what Marcus Aurelius did, and you know, his
That's
10
amazing.
generations before him. And it's such a simple thing, and I think probably everybody can get that if they really pay the attention to what the fuck they're doing.
For sure. And on that note,
What an episode.
It was great, Thomas. And please leave us a review on iTunes. Go to the Facebook page. Facebook page is getting a lot better. We're putting a lot of cool stuff on there. And always remember that
We're all alone in this together.
Peace be upon you, Thomas, my brother.